Let's get stuck back into the learning, more about how AI is helping the programmatic industry by kicking off panel 2 with the help of their always knowledgeable moderator, Sara Vincent, from Managing Director of UK and Ireland for Index Exchange. And the panelists will explore the impact and effectiveness of AI on programmatic buying and trading. And they'll discuss and give practical examples on key elements such as data targeting, auction mechanics, and management. So, over to you.
Thank you for the welcome, Nick, and it's lovely to be here, and again to Google for hosting in this amazing venue. It's super cool. I'm very excited to be here today to host a panel about the impact and effectiveness of AI as it relates to really today's practices in programmatic buying. We heard earlier that we think about AI as quite new, but it has been around in our industry for quite some time, probably renamed no more as machine learning. But yeah, today we're going to explore a bit more about what real-life applications we're seeing and some learnings from that. So very excited to welcome our panel. We'll do a quick round of intros. I've just been introduced, so you know who I am, but I'll pass over to you, Rob.
Hi everyone, I'm Rob Georgeson, Head of Programmatic at Zenith UK. Proud to say the only agency representation today, so I'll try and give a good flavour from that account.
Yeah, hi everyone, good afternoon. My name is Sara Sihelik. I'm the country director for the DACH region at Quantcast. We are an ad tech company, and we leverage AI and machine learning since day one, primarily for audience analytics and programmatic buying, so we are also a DSP.
Hello everyone, my name is Mathieu Roche. I'm the CEO and co-founder of ID5. We're an identity company, and our job is to process signals on about 7 billion devices every month. So you can imagine the volume of data that we handle and how we're using AI and machine learning to help us do that.
Hi everyone, I'm Laura Carstens. I'm Director of Product Marketing at Integral Ad Science. So we're a measurement and optimization company focused on driving superior results for advertisers, agencies, and publishers.
Thank you very much, and welcome. So first question is around data targeting and really exploring about how AI is impacting data targeting today, enabling more personalization, and of course, obviously, return on investment in that respect. Sarah, if I start with you, can you give us the perspective on that from your stance within Quantcast?
Yeah, sure. The whole point of using AI, right, is to make things easier, to simplify repetitive tasks and so on, and bring in automation. And when it comes to data targeting, our world out there just keeps getting more complex, and the amounts of data that's out there that is available to us as well. And when we bring it back to marketing, the customer journey just keeps getting more complex. We are all using more devices, consuming things on more devices, and are targetable across multiple devices. So if you add all this up, and also who is your typical customer, it's very difficult. It becomes very difficult nowadays to define that. So the amount of data that you have to process is increasing, and that's where AI comes into place. And of course, the quality of data that you're using is really important, that you use for your machine to learn. And for example, we at Quantcast believe in really the power of first-party data that compared to third-party data is more real-time and reflects quicker of the behavioral pattern of your audience. And so that's where, for example, you can really leverage AI analyzing huge amounts of data, first-party data in real time to then action on that.
Yeah, I think it's, having read a bit around this subject as well and prep for the panel, but one of the huge benefits of AI is that aggregation of that huge amount of data, really big data, that will only enhance and optimize the performance, but it's just so tricky to do that as a manual, like as a person today. So it's great to hear that's aligned with you. Laura, what about your side?
Yeah, so I think that with AI and programmatic, as we've all talked about, it's been part of the programmatic landscape for a while now. So I think companies like IAS are using AI already in terms of data targeting. So you're allowed to go a step further than maybe keywords or URL lists and actually understand the context of a page, the brand safety, suitability, and then using natural language processing. So AI technology that reads a page like a human to understand sentiment, and then going into emotion. So understanding like humor versus love versus sadness versus hate. They're all really powerful tools for marketers to be targeting at a much more granular and personalized level. Again, going a step further than those keywords or URL lists. So I think that AI in programmatic targeting has been a great step forward.
Okay. Oh, Matthew.
Well, bidding is targeting, and bidding is about like ingesting signals and understanding which one matter for a particular impression in terms of pricing, in terms of creative choices. And what AI gives us the ability to do is get more of those signals processed in real time and used to respond with, again, the right price and the right ad, basically. And so if you have a chance to say yes or no, a chance to say like blue or red, it's very limited, right? Now with the processing capability that we have with artificial intelligence, we can take a lot more of those signals into account. Context, sentiment, weather forecasts, time of the day, et cetera, and the list is endless. And so it's about this ability to ingest more signals and to process more signals in the very small time we have to respond, and build models that can take into account all of those variables rather than just one to say yes or no on one given data point. So that's really, I think, the game-changing factor here is the diversity of signal we can ingest to process bidding decisions and targeting decisions.
Yeah. And Rob, do you agree with that?
Yeah, certainly, but I guess...
The only agency person here?
Yeah, why not? Yeah. I think it's difficult to not talk about data and targeting in AI without talking about privacy. Certainly...
Already?
Yeah, already. It's like bundled together in my mind. They're so intertwined that I just can't pick them apart. And if you think like why programmatic has been on media plans, we've been executing so much of it that way for so long. From Nick's programmatic attitudes study, like more and more is getting activated programmatically. Why? Well, it's the ability to use precision targeting. But as we know, next year that's going to diminish quite a lot. You're probably going to need to use identity techniques in order to help you out. But AI is going to help us interpret signals that we weren't using before to inform targeting about understanding attributes and online behaviors. But also, I see, first-party data, as you said, Sarah, that's going to become more important from like a seed audience perspective, using that to enable you to scale up and prospect new users. Because really, as proponents of programmatic, like addressability is like the foundation of what we have. And with next year coming, learn as much as you can as an agency person working across lots of different clients, lots of different platforms. You really have to be on top of it for next year. AI is a complex space, and you've got to understand it as best you can and communicate that to your clients.
Yeah. I think the understanding as best you can is where the challenge comes in. It's obviously very complicated, ever-changing, but it feels like there's very much an openness in the industry to understand it, to work together, to collaborate, to bring it to the fore in the beneficial capacity that it can be. Moving on to auction mechanics, do you have examples, and Rob, I'll start with you, on how AI has helped inform bidding strategies and optimising budgets?
Yeah. I'll try not to do a history lesson here, but I mean, in programmatic, if you think about like auction mechanics specifically, the change that we've had over the last 10 years or so couldn't be any bigger. 10 years ago, we were all sitting there putting in our fixed bids into platforms, expecting a second price auction, and you're going to win your impression at incrementally more than the second highest bidder. And it required a lot of intensive optimization, pulling reports. I can tell you I was there doing it. It was boring, but we all did it together, so it was fine. And it was a science and an art, let's say. And then in comes header bidding. Soon after it follows first price auctions, bid shading techniques on both the sell and buy side. And the DSPs had to figure out ways to drive those efficiencies that you're suddenly maybe not getting because you're paying that first price. And DSPs developed like automating bidding strategies, whether that's towards like things like CPA, CPC, and I guess for the publishers, it was probably such a strange change for them of that uniformity of like demand. Suddenly, advertisers optimizing towards completely different objectives. And I guess step forward today, that machine learning is like table stakes now. Like you're optimizing towards those outcomes like consistently in DSPs. Really now, I guess what we're talking about is custom bidding solutions. identifying a metric from an effectiveness point of view that might sit outside of your traditional in-platform DSP metrics, building out a custom algorithm, configuring it against this KPI, being it, someone mentioned attention before, that's obviously an important area. DSPs haven't quite ingested those signals yet, and it's a means to, as a buyer, like adding value for your client that otherwise you wouldn't get. It's not easy. You've got to have that expertise in-house embedded in your buying team, but yeah, you're extracting much more value than you probably would be otherwise.
Yeah, that was an amazing lesson. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And yeah, just to add from the index side, it was mentioned earlier that machine learning is not a new thing, and that we have been working with it for years, and multiple years, let's say. So from our side, in terms of like auction mechanics, we are applying, to give you an example, like we're applying machine learning to inform our bidding behavior and bidding strategies with DSPs. So we can identify, ultimately our aim is to send the right bid to the right DSP at the right time in order to maximize the ROI on that bid as well. So it's underpinned with efficiency because you're not wasting bids going to DSPs, but it's informed by the historical insight that we have in that bidding behavior. And that's really one thing that we do now, and we can see that is going to evolve quite quickly into pricing strategies and fully optimizing beyond that as well. So it's this ever-changing, very fast-paced world of AI, which is obviously being used for the good so far. The question for really the whole panel is around how, if you've got some examples of real life, like case studies that have been underpinned or powered by AI that you would like to share. Do you want to start off, Laura?
Perfect, yeah. I think one like industry-wide example would be the use of the word COVID as a keyword and how we've seen it progress over time. So if you think of a lot of advertisers put COVID as a block word for their programmatic buys, but by using AI-powered segments, you can actually take it a step further and harness that content and that all those different types of publishers and content as they were in, if they're contextually aligned with what you're trying to say. So again, if it's a positive article like a DIY COVID activity for home or travel plans post-COVID, those are all examples I think of at a macro level, understanding how keywords are limiting and how using AI-powered segments and targeting or avoidance can really unlock scale and unlock content for advertisers. With a specific programmatic agency, we also did a case study of using those types of context control segments, and these are also cookieless. So to the point of privacy, a future-proof solution, and they found that they had a 36% increase or improvement in click-through rate and 21% increase in cost per click. So an improvement, again, on both retention and recognition with advertisers, but also for their bottom line to have improvement. So I think there are a lot of efficiency plays that come with it. So when you're targeting better content, you're going to see the results as an advertiser, and then also get more traction with the end user as well.
Mathieu, any examples from your...
Yeah, we're not really involved in the transaction itself. We don't buy or sell data or media, but we inform those transactions quite significantly with the signals that we provide in a world where traditional identity signals, cookie IDs and MAIDs are slowly but surely deprecated. Our signals take an increased importance in the bidding strategy of our clients, right? Whether they decide to pass the right bid to the right buyer, or on the buy side, whether they decide to bid or not to bid on an impression. We play a role into that flow of bid requests. But on our side, the application of AI or machine learning are really on the processing and the recognition of devices. We have we work with a variety of signals. Sometimes we have a user who's authenticated, and so we have a hashed email address. Sometimes they haven't authenticated, but we have other signals that are passed to us by the publisher, such as IP address, page URL, timestamp of visit. And so it's how do we process those signals that are always different to be able to recognize or to guess with a high enough level of confidence that this device and that device belong to the same user, or this device on that site and that device on that site are actually the same device. And so it's really the processing of those information that allow us, and the use of artificial intelligence that allow us to give, on average, between 75 and 85% of the time, a stable ID to power the transaction, which then will inform the bidding model of our clients to make the right decision using another signal than the one they've been using for the past 20 years. So that's really how we play. It's not really I know you were asking for a practical example. Don't have a practical example, but as close as a practical example as I can get. And we see that when there is an ID, the bid becomes much more valuable for the publisher and for the brand, and so that leads to 30 to 50, 60% lift in CPMs, bid CPMs. Mm-hmm. So that's the outcome of having more signals involved in the bidding process.
Sure. Sara, do you have an example of it?
Yeah, I have many, but maybe I can just continue on the COVID topic and then the ID piece. So one around COVID, not that we really want to remember that time, but obviously there was quite a lot of restrictions around traveling. And one of our clients, which is Adina Hotels, part of the TFE Hotel Group, it's an Australian group, they only really recently started in the DACH region to really open up a lot of hotels. And then with COVID, obviously that was a really difficult time for them. But they kept being live with us, and what we were able to do is changing the keywords and the targeting based on the restrictions or allowance around travel. So there was a period, for example, where there was only business travels allowed around Germany, and we leveraged AI to really find that exact audience, and were able to still drive ROASes of over 5 during that period, which is incredible, and helped that hotel chain to really basically survive. And then maybe to throw in something else around more the future, around cookieless, and maybe something controversial, because I know you represent the ID part of it, but I think it's, to our opening point, it's very important to understand that putting all your eggs in one basket and hoping to, thinking that ID signals will be the solution in a cookieless future can be quite risky, just because there is, let's be honest, not that many ID signals currently in the bid streams already today. That's why the technologies today really need to be able to work with multiple signals, right? And that's very difficult to do, and that's where you really need a good AI and machine learning technology. And who says that the EU Commission is not going to look into the ID solutions closely next? So we need to really use this as an opportunity to properly future-proof our technologies. And I think by leveraging AI, the way we are doing it and then continuing doing it is really the right way. A clear example for that is actually together with Zenith. It's a different team than Rob's team, but we are working together on the client Swarovski, which is like a big jewelry brand. I hope everyone knows them, but it's a big legacy brand. But what we're seeing today, the typical customer is purchasing really mobile web, and preferably on iPhone devices using Safari browser, which today already, as we know, there's no third-party cookies in there. And what we are doing with all our campaigns, currently obviously it's Black Friday now, we're expanding into those environments, and partially there are markets where we are seeing 59% of conversions coming from those environments. So it's really very important to already do that today, and that's how we are leveraging our machine learning.
That's amazing. Back to your point about the hotel during COVID. So how have you expanded on that, the learnings from that campaign, or that obviously working with that brand, into today's activities?
Yeah, so now we're a similar strategy. We're using it a lot for the new hotel openings. Mm-hmm. And it's the same logic, but obviously with other keywords, working with other types of audiences. But I think that was a really good point, because obviously they already worked with us before, and they believe to a certain extent into programmatic advertising. But I think that really showed them the power that it has, and how quickly you have to be able to change your targeting and according to your customers. And there's definitely, don't want to go too much detail, but they have hotels that are really, they are specialized in apartment hotels, so it's perfect for families traveling, but they still want to have kind of a hotel experience, but also a kitchen. Also business travels, if you're traveling for a week or longer and you want to have your own kitchen. And yeah, so it's clear, depending on the type, the district, the city that they're opening up, you know already what type of audience you're addressing. Is it more the business type of travels because it's closer to the airport, etc., and so on? Yeah, that helped in many ways.
Yeah, that's great. It's great. Great example. Rob, do you have anything to add on that?
Apart from the work that we've been doing together already with another team. I think as I described, when we talk about auction mechanics, we're certainly using AI, machine learning, automation, whatever you want to call it, in pretty much every campaign we do. And whether that's the different turnkey solutions in each DSP, or whether it's building a more bespoke solution, identifying an effectiveness metric, creating like your own custom bidder, that's certainly the work that we're developing with clients at the moment that's really stand out, and I'd say it enables you to really demonstrate value beyond just your trading specialism, and also like you can identify savings for the client. Like you're actually to the point of, is programmatic too expensive from last year? If you can demonstrate that you're buying better quality media for a lower price, that's both of the blockers that we discussed earlier. The example that we've got, without rolling out a case study on a slide behind me to present, we've been working with one of our financial services clients to do pretty much exactly that. Identify an attention metric, which I believe was viewable time on screen, and by optimizing towards it through this model versus control, something like a 25-26% uplift for pretty much like almost half the cost from a CPM perspective. Yeah, very difficult to argue against the success that we've got from it, and then presenting that back as savings, which basically essentially pays for the proprietary tool that you've built, and you're giving a client a competitive advantage essentially.
Yeah, that's really interesting, isn't it? And it's about you're doing these this kind of testing now, and to be able to share that, amplify the results, and overcome some of those challenges that were identified in the survey of, are we getting the quality? Would be a great step. We've got a few minutes left being waved at, but I wanted to just go around the panel and talk about some of the, obviously we talked about some very positive examples, but there obviously are some challenges we face today. So if we can run through what you think the challenges are, let's do that first, and then we'll look at perhaps a final word on opportunities. Can we start at the end, Laura?
Yeah, so I think one challenge with programmatic and AI in general is just generative AI that we've talked about earlier as well. I think we're coming up on an election year in the US and a lot of just ongoing the climate right now with a lot of different things going on. So I think that generative AI with misinformation, MFA sites were noted earlier as well. So I think that for advertisers, programmatic moves very quickly, and so does AI. So making sure that you are using tools that can keep up with AI, so using AI-powered tools to combat those bad characters, if you will, is really important. So having an element of AI in your strategy to make sure you're not aligning next to that content, and also working with, of course, third parties and neutral reviewers of misinformation, for example, I think is really important going into the new year and thinking about AI and programmatic specifically.
Mathieu?
Yeah, we mentioned privacy earlier. I think this is the obvious challenge that we have to face, because right now the pillars of privacy, they're not that you cannot recognize people, right? That's not what the GDPR says. The GDPR says if you're going to recognize people, use personal data to recognize them. You have to get there. You have to be transparent about doing it, and you have to give them a choice, right? And all of the regulations out there, whether it's the multiple state regulations in the US, whether it's LGPD in Brazil, the upcoming DPDA in India, they're all based on those two pillars, transparency and control. And the problem with automated processing of data is that you're losing a lot of the control. What we see in systems that are working on recognition based on a black box algorithm on device recognition is that you're losing track of the individual data contribution to the model, which is an issue, because how do you exercise your right to be forgotten? How do you exercise your right to data access if your data has been boldened into a model and just spit out like this? So I think privacy compliance and how we're going to actually respect the letter of the privacy regulation or the data protection regulation, which is, again, not that you cannot recognize people, is that you have to ask them for permission and be transparent about doing it. How we're going to respect that is a question. And I think there's a second, maybe more philosophical question, maybe for a drink later, is thinking about the consequences of artificial intelligence. 200 years ago, the steam engine led to the Industrial Revolution. Today, artificial intelligence is leading to an intellectual revolution that is going to make a lot of intellectual jobs redundant, like machines. Industrialization of society made a lot of manual jobs redundant. 200 years ago, it was the secondary sector that evolved, and people went to the tertiary sector, services. Today, most people are employed in services in the tertiary sector, but there's no quadriary sector, fourth sector, right? And so what are we going to do with all of those people made redundant? How are we going to reinvent society? So I think it's not about AI directly, it's about the consequences of AI and how that's going to apply to much broader topics than just programmatic advertising.
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's like the points you're making they're actually big fundamental points to solve across the industry, across everything, and not relating to AI, but super important when we're talking about development of AI. Final thoughts on challenges?
Yeah, I prefer to talk about the positives and opportunities rather than the challenges. Definitely with the new attention that this topic got and what's happening also with OpenAI and so on, it's questionable what regulations are going to come up and how that's going to impact everything. And I was in a meeting this morning and someone said the big question, is AI going to be used for the good of humanity or then just for money? And we probably all know what way it's going to go, but yeah, that's things where it can throw everything into different direction.
Final words, Rob?
Closing remarks. Firstly, I'll take that drink later. So yeah, maybe I'll skim over both the opportunity and the challenge. Let's call it a carrot-based stick. I feel like, yeah, over the next 12 months there could be, or maybe a bit longer, could be a bit of a divergence in market of how programmatic is perceived. We've already got a lot of talk around generative AI and MFA, like weaning people away from programmatic, and then factor in black box targeting solutions, dynamic creative insertion into placements that you maybe didn't know were on your media plan. That's obviously the bad side of it, that's maybe advertisers will choose to invest into touch points which they're more familiar with, like traditional media touch points where quality in their mind is more assured. And then you've obviously got the carrot, which is what we would probably all support, which is lean in now. You've only got a few months. You probably can test your existing techniques against these new leverage these new AI-driven tools, use incrementality testing, regression-based attribution, really stress test it now. Because, yeah, if you're not prepared, as we've all mentioned, like privacy, yeah, you're going to be caught in a real tough spot. So, yeah. Go for the carrot, not the stick.
Brilliant. Great advice.
I think what's really encouraging is that if you compare, like we sleepwalked into social media 15 years ago and are only now discovering the impact on mental health, on the division in society, right, hate, speech and everything. I think we're walking into AI with our eyes wide open. What happened over the weekend at OpenAI was apparently driven by ethical concerns and challenges and the disconnect between the founding team and the board members. So it feels like it's been very early a topic of discussion, which I think is encouraging because we recognize that there are dangers and we're addressing them head on. And yes, everybody likes to speak about opportunity rather than challenge, but it's important to talk about the challenge. Otherwise, we're gonna end into the wall. So I think that's the silver lining here.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm definitely have heard in the last 6 months talking about this, that there is a total stream of consciousness about making sure this is responsible, that it's ethical, that we could consider this, and also understanding that what we put in is what's actually going to be coming out. And so making sure that's a balanced view. Talking of balanced views, I couldn't moderate a panel on AI without asking for any commentary from ChatGPT on this. And suffice to say, unsurprisingly, the feedback was that AI is incredibly beneficial and important for programmatic advertising.
Shocking.
Really calling out all the points that we've discussed today. So we're in alignment, which is good.
Well, he's only repeating what we've said in the past anyway. That's what it does, right?
That's what we've already inputted. Do we have time for questions? Is there anyone in the room or on the call?
We've got time for one question.
One question. There we go.
Hi, thank you. I'm Dirk from RTL in Germany. And what I ask myself, or what's going around in my head, is if AI is doing the optimization of campaigns today, or is getting better in optimized campaigns today, what will be the future? Today I have a direct relation with my sales director of the agency. Maybe in the future, AI is doing this decision. How will AI learn what is a good platform or a good publisher, what is a bad publisher? Would it be good to have a neutral database of publishers at IAB or whatever to show, or just let it learn from Wikipedia that RTL maybe has these Temptation Island shows, which is good content, but and then YouTube has even better content or whatever. This is what I ask myself. Do we have to provide more neutral information on publishers, on channels, on whatever, to train AI for the future? So where does it get its information? I don't know if you know any answer, but this is going around in my head to how can we improve here and just not let anyone else decide for us what information should be learned about our channels, about our media houses and whatever.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Anyone want to take a stab?
I think it raised the question of attribution and measurement, right? Because in the end, it's a good publisher is really dependent on what the brand wants and what the goals and the affinity with the brand, the messaging, et cetera, et cetera. So it's very relative.
And maybe on that side might also be an AI, which decides what's good for the brand.
Yes, but good will depend on the results. And the AI will help understand the results better. And so that's my point about like, ideally, you want to start your media plan completely wide open and just like slowly but surely restrict to the media owners that are best suitable for your brand performance, your target, your campaign attributes, whatever they are. They might be affinity, they might be awareness, they might be post-click conversion, God forbid. There's a range of performance metrics, but I think it's difficult to say what is good, what is bad in absolute. And I think the AI will help us get to that automation process actually better than a media planner who says, oh yeah, I know those guys, I don't know those guys, I'm going to work with them. So I think there you go, optimism again. There's more rationality in the decision-making process that a machine can take, which hopefully will end up valuing the media owners that work better for the brand performance.
Yeah, I'd say it's difficult to just hang your hat on the data though. So for example, I was chatting earlier about automated bidding strategies when they first emerged. I remember viewable CPM was one of the options. So if you set a viewable CPM goal in the platform of £5, you could be buying some media at 100% viewability at £5, or you could be buying media for £1 at 20% viewability. Still a viewable CPM of £5. You can probably guess what the platform did, right? Yeah, an AI model is only as good as the inputs that you put into it, right? You need a human verification. I do agree with that. Yeah. And from inventory quality, yeah, again, you're probably looking at metrics at the moment, things like attention as a proxy for whether it's a suitable publisher or not. So I'd say, yeah, you probably are going to always need that human lens. Unless someone like a verification company, thankfully we've got Laura on the panel that might be able to inform us better.
Yeah, I was just going to say that really is, I think, the benefit of using AI-based targeting or avoidance segments, targeting towards content, not just thinking of a list of publishers that are good or bad, but really what is on the page that is it a positives article? Does it talk about things that you want to be seen next to or things that you want to stay away from? Really having more granular targeting or avoidance capabilities, again, powered by AI, are already in market, and I think those are great tools to, again, not do a blanket of you're good, you're bad, but really unlock scale for yourself and support good content. So having, again, that granularity of emotion, contextual relevance, brand safety, brand suitability, viewability, all of those I think are great tools to use AI in your strategy for different publishers.
Can you imagine that on the other side there might be also an AI who mimics this thing?
Yeah. I think your points are really valid, and it really confirms, I guess, what we were saying of there will be AI to help optimize and measure, but there also needs to have that human element as well. There needs to be some sense checking along the way, and currently, our position, we believe that the human element is going to bring that. So it's something, as we said, if it's still conscious for us, and then we need to make sure it remains that forefront of the mind that this isn't going to replicate humans completely. We just need to get that balance and keep the sensibility.
Yeah, to your example of the TV shows, right? It's brand suitability. It's like subjective. As soon as it becomes subjective, then you do need that human touch to it to be able to point basically the AI into the right direction, right? Because some of your shows might be very suitable for some advertisers, and then others would be like, we don't want to be anywhere near that show. And yeah, that's where you will still need humans in the end.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Thanks for the